Good evening, everybody. Welcome to another Principal Tuesday night call sponsored by DE and Band of Brothers all over the world. I know personally I am reeling from this past weekend's DE. If you were there, you know how incredibly amazing, unifying, galvanizing, reassuring. So many words, so many descriptions, but as always, it was a total game changer. So grateful to have that space and that time with all of you. And if you weren't able to come, we missed you. If you weren't able to come, get ready for October. Our next DE is coming up. Let's see here. What are the dates? October 24th through the 27th. That'll be in Atlanta at the Perimeter Marriott again. After that, we got January 9th and through the 12th in Florida and April 10th through 13th in Clearwater. But this October DE is going to be special. It is the 60th anniversary of Dynamic Essentials. And so we are going to celebrate it big. Diamonds are forever. There's going to be a theme. We want to dress up to the nines like James Bond. That party is going to be on Saturday. So a couple of things. Number one, go ahead and get registered for DE. But also, while you do, get registered for this gala. So those tickets are separate, but they're all found on the Life DE page. So make sure you go ahead and step up for that. We have opportunities to commemorate in a journal. You can buy a full page, half page, or a business card size. These are going to be like a little souvenir booklet from the anniversary party for the 60th DE. So, and make sure you get that in by October 3rd. So we have the 60th anniversary coming up. I love to think I've been there a little bit more than 1/6 of it, but there's so many of you that could tell a story for half of it. So those are going to be some wonderful stories, I'm sure, and we're going to have a lot of great memories and make a lot of new ones too. But what we want to do is get on with our speaker tonight. Thom Green is from Elmira, Ontario. He is brilliant chiropractor, father, busy guy, got a wonderful practice going on up there. And we're so excited to hear what he's got to say. I love hearing these new Tuesday night calls. I believe this is his first one. So everybody get ready and take it away, Thom.
Thanks, Don. Excited to be here. It's fun doing the first Tuesday night call after DE, and it was such an incredible weekend. It was raw and real, and there was a lot of emotions. And I normally, and just to give you a little background on myself, Dr. Thom Green, my wife Sarah, and I, we're chiropractors in Elmira, Ontario. We have 3 kids, and usually we're the ones sitting at the back making all the noise. And when we re-watch the recordings, we usually hear our kids screaming. So it's this past DE, we didn't have our kids, and I had said to Peter Amlinger, I said, "Is this weekend just really deep? Is there a lot going on, or is it just that we don't have kids?" And he said it's probably a little bit of both. And usually we're stuck at the back of the room, which it's great and all, and you get what you need to get, and you hear what you need to hear. But we were able to sit up closer to the front, just Sarah and I, no kids, and I feel like it's a lot. It's different, right, when you're sitting at the front, because it's right in your face, and you're right there in it. There's no distractions, and it's like riding a roller coaster. You're at the front of the coaster, and it's that much more exciting, that much more fun. And sitting up there with the seasoned vets and just taking it all in. And I talked to some friends and colleagues, and we're always trying to get people to come down. And the one question I get is, what do you guys get out of DE? And for us, as you know, it's not what you get. It's sometimes what you give. Sometimes it's what you get. And they said, where's the chiropractic? What are you learning? And the DEUs are amazing, but for us, it's really about hearing the speaker's story and connecting with that person, hearing about their struggles, their wins, their triumphs, and I feel like that's what keeps us coming back, is just how real it is. And there's no, people aren't trying to just boost themselves up there and make it seem like something they're not. And I think that's helped me be more authentic and really dive deeper into some of the stuff that I've been struggling with. And this DE, Saturday afternoon, I ended up in my hotel room, and I was feeling the feels. The husks were shedding, and Sarah came up and found me, and she's just like, you're not doing this. Like, I know what you're doing. Like, I was going back to my old patterns, and she's like, what are you feeling? What do you need to talk about? So we talked it down, and some trauma from childhood was coming up, and stuff that, I needed to deal with on a deeper level. And so she's like, you need to get checked. I'm like, no, I'm good. And usually when I say, no, I'm good, she's like, yes, you do. That's usually the sign that I need to get an adjustment. So she's like, let's go downstairs. And we went down, and Peter checked me, and he rocked my C5, and I just felt everything start to clear, and I felt better. So we went for a walk and just continued to work it out and talk it out. And I'm so blessed to have my wife, who's literally done so much for me, from being my psychological counselor to partner in practice, the woman who's gave birth to my kids. And I just feel blessed to have her in my life to do these things with, and keep me accountable. And Peter said to me, if you heard his talk, he was talking about cherry trees and being a kid and climbing up to try and get the best fruit, and the best fruit is always at the top of the tree, and instead of just getting the low hanging fruit. And his comment to me was, you need to climb higher, go further out on the limb. And so I feel like that's been my struggle, is who am I? Like, I'm just Thom Green, right? And who am I to have such a big purpose in life to help so many people? And listening to Steve Judson talk, I get a lot of power, I feel like, when I listen to Steve. And the other night he said, I'm Steve frickin' Judson, and I'm Thom frickin' Green. And so I feel like stepping into my own and who I am has been a big part of this journey. And so, I was reading some old Green books, one on the way down, and reading some of the safety pin cycles. And BJ talks about transformation. So as you're transforming that efferent nerve signal into work, into something else that's going to take shape and create. And I feel like that was on my heart all weekend, transformation. And for myself, like, we, after Saturday, we go to the airport Sunday, and just like most other people, flights were delayed, flights were canceled. And normally I get pretty stressed at the airport. I don't like flying. It's not my thing. I get stressed, and usually that leads to some sort of fight between Sarah and I. I kind of clam up and start making dumb decisions, and she calls me out, and then I get frustrated. So, we're at the airport, flights are getting canceled, and we stayed cool, and I stayed calm. And she's just like, I'm so thankful I didn't have to parent you the whole time, as well as try and figure out all these flights and getting home and going back to see our kids. So, right away, I felt like there was this immediate shift, and really, going back to people asking about what do you get out of DE, I don't think you can't measure it, right? You can't really measure this stuff. It's heart-centered, it's spiritual, it's in your soul. and all of that impacts your practice. And so, yeah, thankfully we did make it home on Sunday. I know we were talking to Paula, and she didn't make it home till Monday night, I think. But yeah, it's we finally made it home, and I think that's part of it too. Like Mike had talked about persistence alone being omnipotent, and so I think just persisting enough to show up, to come to DE, to make that trip. Like, we're coming from Canada. It's not right around the corner. We drive 2 hours to Buffalo, we take a flight, and then we work our way up to DE. And I think that alone, making that journey, and continuing to do that is really all part of that persistence. And I think we're born persistent. Like, I look at my kids and they're persistent as hell. Like, if they don't want to do something, they let you know. Or if they want a granola bar, they scream and fight till they get it. And so I think it's continuing to find that within. And how you do anything is how you do everything. And if you can keep showing up, you keep putting in the work, then that translates to other areas of your life. So, and really, I think, recentering on what's important in life is often what happens when I come to DE, because it's easy to get all caught up in life and what's happening. Like, life is busy, it doesn't stop. We're scheduled from the time we get up to the time we go to sleep. And so it can start to drain you and kind of beat you down, and you feel kind of worn out. And when we couldn't come to DE during COVID, we were all locked up here in Canada. It was challenging. Like, we did incredible. Like, our practice grew throughout. We worked our butts off, but there was just something missing. Watching it online is great. It's what kept us plugged in and kept us connected. But it's just so nice to be home again, and to be able to go back to DE and just connect with people who are doing it big and following their purpose in life, listening to their innate. Speaking of innate and getting to DE, like, we're often, like I said, we're in the back, we're just playing with the kids and trying to focus. And when we were down there in April, I was bugging my daughter. She just turned 8. I said, "You guys just come to go to Kids DE and play and have fun. Like, you're not listening. What are we talking about at DE?" And she looked at me and she said, "Daddy, that's easy. You're talking about innate, and innate is God, and all you have to do is listen." And she kind of stopped me dead in my tracks, and I just looked at her and said, "You got it. Like, that's everything." And for my daughter to grasp that concept now and understand that to the point where she could verbalize it was powerful. And that's where we want to raise our kids, like Brian always talked about. We want our kids to be surrounded by people who are innately guided. And I think it's as kids, and when we're little, that's just a part of life, right? We're innately directed. Our instincts are, we're hungry, let's eat. We're tired, let's go to sleep. And so I think we become so educated that we start to lose that. And for me, it's been a journey back to listening to my innate. And since we started coming 10 years ago to DE, it's really been a slow peeling back of the layers. And so, I feel like each time it goes a little bit deeper, and sometimes seem way harder than others. And this DE was definitely more emotionally challenging for myself. But I think for myself, I start to lose sight of where I've come. And like I said, it's been 10 years. We went to DE the first time right before we were about to graduate from CMCC. And so that DE, I remember Sarah and I, like, Sarah cried most of DE, and I was just kind of in shock and awe, and it kind of set the tone for our practice. And we went back to Canada and started our practice, and made sure we got back there in October, and that was for the 50th anniversary. Um, and so, we've tried to continue to make this a part of our life. And so following that and your growth, like I remember the first few years were hard, but it was kind of that slow and steady growth. We kept trying to show up, do what felt authentic to us. And we had some coaches along the way, and we always made sure though that it felt right before we did it, because I think a lot of people hire a coach and they just do what they say, and then they find that they're in a practice that they don't even really feel like it's theirs, and they're doing things and they don't really know why they're doing them. So for us, it's always important that we put it through a filter first. Did this make sense to us? Is this how we want to treat other people? And we've kind of grown through that now. Like our mentoring is coming to DE and rubbing shoulders with people who are there and beyond where we are in practice and life, because for us this is bigger than just practice. It's about living an incredible life and having a great relationship with my wife and kids, and that's kind of led us down the path where now we're looking to homeschool our kids. That's sort of the next step. We always kind of knew we weren't going to follow the conventional school system, but the further we've gone and the more stuff that's happened, God put it on our hearts. And this past November, we were out for dinner and we just looked at each other, and I said to Sarah, I'm like, we need to homeschool. And she's just like, shit, yeah, I know. And that's usually how it happens. It's like there's not a lot of thinking. It's just all of a sudden it's put on your heart, and you need to act. And I'm thankful that I have an incredible wife who, that's what she does. Like before you even like the words have come out of your mouth, like she's on it. She's on to the next thing and figuring out how we're going to do it. And that's the one thing she's taught me, is how to take action, because I was always very slow and methodical and would chew on the cud for weeks and days and months. And then finally, then I would make a decision. And that's kind of how I was with asking my wife to marry me. In hindsight, I should have asked her a lot sooner. Thankfully, she stuck around long enough for me to ask her. But, again, it's going back to listening. And so I want to share a story. The week before we came down to DE, I was at a house call. Usually after a mom gives birth to a child in our office, we give them like a little gift, and write in a little card to them and offer to come to their house and check them and the baby after. And so I was at a house call checking this little baby and mom, and she said to me that there had been a visitation the other day across the street. And so I said, oh, really? And she said, yeah, it was the busiest one I've ever seen. It went all the way down and around the block. People were lined up for hours. And so she said that she had to look up the name. And when she said the name, it was a patient who had died. And I hadn't known. He had been in a week or two before. And I said, oh, thanks for telling me. And it's funny how the universe works, because, just when you're meant to be somewhere, God calls you. And in that moment, I hadn't known he died. I finished up the adjustment. I had an hour before my afternoon shift, so I ran across the street and got in line. And there was an older couple in front of me. The older gentleman had a walker and his wife. And so this was at a Mennonite funeral. So we live in a small farm town. We see a lot of Mennonites. And the gentleman who passed, him and his wife have been patients for years. He was actually one of the first patients who walked in to our office. When we opened, he walked in through the front door and said, are you taking new patients? And we said, yes, indeed. And he started out, and he was with us ever since. And so the older couple who was in front of me, I said to him, I'm like, is it okay if I butt you? I'm on a tight timeline here. And they said, well, only if you tell me who you are. So I gave them my name, told them who I was, what I did. And so we went into the visitation, them right behind me, and huge lineup of people, really big families. As Mennonites, as you can imagine, I think they had 7 or 8 kids. So they were all lined up, and they were mature, obviously, and they have their own kids and grandkids. And the first gentleman I met, I think he was the oldest son, and I told him who I was, and he took my hand and just started shaking my hand, and he didn't stop. And he said, "Thank you so much for all that you've done for mom and dad." And he just kept shaking my hand and wouldn't let go. And and then that continued down the line, one after another. They had never met me, but they had heard apparently good things about me. And so they, I worked my way down. It probably took me 45 minutes, and kept interacting with each person as I went. And you know, I'm I find it uncomfortable at times, especially in those situations. You don't always know what to say, but just to let them know that you're there, and that you care, I think was kind of my message. And along the way, I saw a few patients too. They were in the line, and I get to the end. So I'll just fast forward for you. I get to the end, and I'm leaving, and the gentleman who was behind and his wife behind me in the line were leaving at the same time. So I said, "Well, I butted you. At least I can do is get the door for you." And he stopped me, and he said, "Hold on a minute." He looked at me and said, "Was this a visitation or marketing?" And I laughed, and I said, "Marketing, of course." And he said, "I was in agricultural marketing for years. And after listening to all the conversations and what everyone just said and everything that you just did," he's like, "you couldn't take out a newspaper ad or put a dollar value on what you just did." And I said, "Well, when you are close with people and you get to see them so often, you develop a bond, and you really truly care." And he said, "Yeah," he said, "your heart was in the right place, and you can't put a dollar value on that." So just to hear him and his point of view, and this is just something that we do, right? And that's going to DE this weekend, and listening to Dee Dee, and hearing of the stories of Beth's funeral, and showing up and showing the DE love. And this is just something that's second nature. And this isn't something that you learn in a practice management group, but it's just something that you do because it's the right thing to do. And so, and then as I'm leaving too, my receptionist, one of our receptionists, she's in line because she was good friends with one of the daughters. And again, just doing it because it's the right thing to do. And so, I think at the end of the day, going to DE is the right thing to do for our family. And we know that it's impacted us in a huge way, and we want that for our kids and their future. So, I had my doctor's report tonight. It was great. It hasn't always been great, though. I think it was last September. I was, I think I was feeling burnt out last summer. We had recorded a video of our doctor's report, which we use on occasion for someone who can't come to the office, or maybe they don't speak English, so they can interpret it and have their spouse there. But I was having our staff send them the doctor's report on video more often than coming into the office. And I was slipping, and you could see it. Our new patients weren't coming in the same. We'd be standing around being like, "Where is everybody?" And so, I was checking my Google Analytics, and we weren't getting as many phone calls. And chiropractor down the street had got a new website. I'm like, "Oh, that must be it. Oh, they got a new website. We need to get up our SEO, have better search engine optimization." And at the end of the day, that wasn't it at all. It was me, and my heart wasn't in it. And I think going back to persistence, and I think for me, I was feeling like it was becoming repetitious, doing the same thing and telling the same story. And at the end of the day, the story doesn't change, but I think how you present it will change based on where you're at in your life and practice. And so I needed to take some time to kind of step back. And since then I've been doing the doctor's report again, and now we're booking patients months out again. And it's great. It's great to have so many new patients coming in again. It's also a problem because you want to get them in as soon as you can, but your staff and you can only work so quickly. So, I think at the end of the day, it goes back to looking inside and transforming. Where you got to a certain place in practice will take you so far, and then you got to grow that next level. So I keep coming back to that. And then on the ride home the other night after DE, it had been a long day, 16 hours, and we're driving back, and the full moon's coming up, and it's beautiful, all orange and glowing. And Sarah looked it up, and I guess it's called, this time of year, it's called the buck moon, which is when a lot of bucks grow new antlers. And so I thought that appropriate because it's a spiritual moon, and it's all about transformation. And so that's how I feel like this weekend. It's transformed me, and I'm feeling a lot stronger, a lot more like myself. And at the end of the day, I just feel so blessed and have so much gratitude for all these things in my life, and that we could make it, we could get home, we could serve our patients this week. And so I appreciate you guys having me on the call tonight.
Thom, that was fantastic. Thanks so much for sharing with us.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Living an incredible life. It's easy to recognize that when we get the opportunity to be together and realize how fortunate we are. DE is so special.
Yeah, absolutely.
You got a lot of great comments in there. I couldn't help but notice they were popping up like crazy. So take some time later on and look at them and know you are loved. And all right, everybody, that's going to do it for tonight. I hope you all have a wonderful rest of the week, and we will see you next Tuesday for another DE Band of Brothers Tuesday night call. Thanks a lot again, Thom.
Have a great day.